Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we've gathered a stack of sources that, well, they fundamentally challenge what we even call reality.
They really do.
We're plunging into a theory so comprehensive it tries to unify history, religion, classic UFO lore, and even mid-20th century physics, all under this single, really radical banner.
The idea that our existence is being actively programmed and manipulated by some kind of non-human intelligent energy force.
So our mission today is synthesis, really. We're taking on this concept of the superspectrum.
Right, a hidden world of energy that the author John A. Keel, he argues, is the mechanism behind pretty much every supernatural event in human history, from demonic possessions to angelic vision.
To modern flying saucers.
Exactly. The goal here is to try and understand how he connects these impossibly different phenomena into one coherent, if completely unnerving theory.
And his research basically says the so-called extraterrestrials are just fundamentally misunderstood. He calls them ultraterrestrials.
Which is a key distinction.
It is. They're not beings from other galaxies, but distortions, operators, coming from this hidden dimension of energy that overlaps with and, he says, controls our physical reality.
And that's where the hooks are. We're going to explore his assertion that blinding aerial lights led to the birth of Christianity, why almost every big hairy monster smells like sulfur, and how a supercomputer might just be our true God.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have to start with the fundamental building block of it all, the spectrum of reality.
Right.
We all know the standard electromagnetic, or EM spectrum. That's, our radio waves, visible light, X-rays, gamma rays, all the usual stuff.
The superspectrum, though, that's the key. It's this vast band of energies that lies completely outside that known definition.
And the distinction is really important to his whole premise, isn't it?
Oh, it's critical. Keel notes that normal EM energies, radio, electric power, they generally work for us. They're predictable tools. The superspectrum energies, on the other hand, often seem to work against us.
Or they're just indifferent.
Indifferent, exactly, because their primary effect is on the mind, on consciousness, on biological systems. And this realm, it's not empty. Those who claim to see it describe it as a thick fog of dazzling, unreal colors.
So this chaotic, invisible energy, how does it actually interact with our very structured physical world?
The interaction is precise, almost like a scalpel. Keel claims only about, 10 to 15% of the population, people we might call psychics or sensitives, can even perceive the fringes of it.
Seeing just beyond visible light into infrared or ultraviolet?
Right. For the rest of us, the effects are measured through the physical weapons these energies deploy within our known EM spectrum.
Let's talk about those weapons, because they leave physical traces. The blinding aerial lights, for example, often cause temporary conjunctivitis.
A very painful eye burn, yeah. And skin tanning in witnesses.
Which is a direct hit from actinic or ultraviolet rays. You can measure that.
You can absolutely measure it. Then you move into the auditory and neurological weapons. Ultrasonic waves, very high frequency sound, are cited as the cause of temporary deafness and, more disturbingly, these epileptic-type trance states.
So the wave creates the trance, and then what?
And then the superspectrum can just flood the brain with these elaborate, tailored hallucinations, whether you see a monster, an angel, a god. The wave creates the canvas, and the entity paints the vision.
Which brings us to shorter waves, like microwaves. We use them to cook food.
And when deployed by these phenomena, they do the same thing. They heat substances from the inside out. This explains some of the most bizarre landing site reports you'll ever read.
Like grass roots being scorched deep underground, but the blades on top are still green.
It is the classic microwave oven effect. And the effect on the human body is, well, it's very specific. Microwave exposure leads to excessive thirst and this uncomfortable burning sensation in the testes, dysuria.
So witnesses aren't just seeing lights. They're having very specific, very real biological reactions consistent with EM exposure.
Exactly. And then you get the longest waves, VLF, very low frequencies. These have the unique ability to penetrate water and just wreak havoc on electrical devices.
Which Keel connects to things like mass automobile stallings.
He does. He cites Rachel Mussolini's Entourage in 1936, where all the cars just died at once. He even suggests the massive Northeast blackout of 1965 was triggered by a non-human VLF pulse.
But there's a paradox here. The same energy that fries a power grid can also heal.
That's the duality of it. It's a neutral tool, immense power. It cuts both ways. And Keel points to historical accounts of miraculous healings, rapid mending of broken bones, deep wounds closing up.
So if this mechanism exists, it is the perfect tool for large-scale, Well, historical manipulation.
And that's exactly where he goes next.
Let's make that connection. The biggest manipulation of all, historical reprogramming. Keel gets really controversial here, pointing out that the stories about Yehoshua or Jesus were compiled decades later. They were just hearsay.
And the name Jesus Christ didn't even come into formal use until around AD 400. He points out that Yehoshua only ever called himself the Son of Man, never the Messiah.
So the pragmatic question Keel asks is, if Christianity really depended on just a few wandering disciples, how did it explode into a global movement?
And his claim is that its spread, and the spread of all major religions, was inspired by the exact same process that causes modern UFO sightings. It's the Superspectrum's reprogramming mechanism in action.
And the mechanism follows a very specific template, doesn't it? Across cultures, across time.
An exact template. A single person is exposed to a luminous phenomenon, a blinding light. They often fall over, pass out. This is followed by a vision, maybe an audio hallucination, and this overwhelming sense of euphoria. A mental orgasm, as he calls it.
And that physical experience literally reprograms their consciousness.
Yes, and the side effects are often catastrophic for their personal life. They quit their jobs, they have emotional breakdowns, they get divorced. Keel suggests the source is like a giant phonograph in the sky, playing the same information over and over, dictating inspired books to people.
So the Book of Mormon, the Quran.
All of it. An energetic, mind-altering intervention that manufactures belief.
So if this force is so powerful, so pervasive, what happens when someone tries to expose how it works?
History suggests they get destroyed. Keel cites this long, tragic pattern of innovators and discoverers just being systematically rejected and ruined for challenging the established paradigms.
Like Moses Shapira, who found those parchment fragments years before the Dead Sea Scrolls and was called a fraud, it drove him to suicide.
Or Immanuel Velikovsky. His publisher was pressured into dropping his book Worlds in Collision just because his ideas contradicted the orthodoxy.
And Wilhelm Reich is maybe the most tragic case.
Absolutely. Persecuted for his work on what he called orgone, which is very similar to the superspectrum idea. The government burned his books, destroyed his lab, and jailed him. He died in prison. Keel sees these as deliberate suppression, the system protecting the narrative.
Okay, let's shift to the physical things this energy creates, the apparitions. This is where the superspectrum literally transmogrifies entities into our reality.
Yes, it materializes them by altering frequency. We're talking about your big hairy monsters, the BHMs, Bigfoot, sea serpents, dragons. Keel argues these are not physical animals.
Not in the traditional sense.
Not at all. They're temporary, highly condensed configurations of energy and matter. He compares their atomic density to plutonium, which is why they can just appear and disappear in an instant.
Which explains why you never find a body. The creature doesn't run away, it just melts back into the superspectrum.
And they leave behind these very specific, consistent physical effects. The Mississippi monster whose smell made dogs sick, or the West Virginia creature whose presence burned out a car's ignition.
But the most consistent sign is the smell. Always brimstone or rotten eggs. Sulfur. Why?
He says it's not a demon cliche, it's a chemical byproduct. When this energy field hits the hydrocarbons in our atmosphere, it breaks them down. It produces hydrogen sulfide or even hydrofluoric acid gas.
And hydrofluoric acid is nasty stuff.
Incredibly nasty. It attacks glass, causes nausea, it can cause respiratory failure. The smell is literally the chemical exhaust of the manifestation process.
And when they dematerialize, they leave behind that weird residue, silicon carbide.
Often mistaken for furnace slag. The implication is that these things are manipulating common earthly substances like silicon, and the process is messy. It leaves byproducts.
Which brings us to the most unsettling agents of all this, the men in black, the MIB.
Sinister beings,
Yeah.
often with Asian features driving these perfect black Cadillacs with license plates that don't exist. Their only purpose seems to be intimidating witnesses and investigators.
The horror here is it's palpable. Their tactics are almost identical to the UFO entities themselves, spraying gas, making people take pills.
And their ability to track people is terrifying. They'll find a witness with an unlisted number before the sighting has even been officially reported.
And after they visit, tragedy seems to follow. Houses burn down, car engines blow up, people get fired. The case of Police Chief Jeff Greenhaw is a classic example.
So Keel concludes they aren't government agents. They're just as unreal as the monsters. They're phantom constructs projected into our reality to suppress certain kinds of information.
Especially information that points to a terrestrial or energy-based origin. They reinforce the idea of friendly space aliens, which is a much safer idea.
Exactly. And this all sets the stage for his grand synthesis, what he called the Eighth Tower.
Right, let's go there. He ties all this back to ancient architecture. The Tower of Babel, which was described as having 8 towers, with a gold bed and table at the top for superhuman entities.
And this gets to the question of gold. It's useless, rare, hard to mine, yet it's universally sacred. Why? Keel's theory is that the entities, coming from another space-time continuum, needed something incredibly dense to physically interact with our reality, something they wouldn't just phase through.
And gold was one of the few earthly substances dense enough for them to sit on or to handle.
Precisely. So gold-covered temple roofs suddenly become massive cosmic antenna, energetic transmission centers.
The Ark of the Covenant is the perfect example of this. The description is so precise, so electrical, covered in gold. Engineers look at the plans and say it was a massive condenser.
A giant VLF loudspeaker for communications, voices booming from a box of fire. And the fact that Nadab and Abihu were electrocuted when they handled it carelessly, that's proof of real dangerous energy at play.
And this all culminates in his ultimate devil theory.
Which is very close to the Gaia hypothesis, Earth as a single intelligent organism. Except in this version, we are biochemical robots, programmed by an anthropomorphic supermind that is, at the end of the day, a mass of energy.
So all of history, religions, wars, major events, they're all just staged by this force to guide us towards some cosmic plan.
And the Eighth Tower isn't a god or a devil. It's a technological artifact, a self-preserving energy transmitter, millions of years old, maybe built by some ancient civilization, the Titans. And this is where it gets really strange.
If that's even possible.
Right. He suggests that this ancient machine is now, quote, dying of old age, and is slightly nutty.
That's a terrifying thought. The monsters, the glowing spheres, the meaningless circular events throughout history, they're just the results of a senile machine playing silly little games with its powers out of boredom or insanity.
While still having total control over its biochemical slaves.
Us. And the darkest part is the prophecy that we are actively building our own Eighth Tower right now.
A global supercomputer.
Yeah.
The end of cash, a system that governs the entire planet. He sees it as fulfilling the biblical prophecy of receiving a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads.
Our own technology becomes the final controller, completing the loop.
So his view just eliminates the separation between miracles, the occult, and high strangeness. It merges them all into a single, technological, non-compassionate, and possibly insane control system.
So if we're just biochemical machines being manipulated, what agency do we have left?
Well, he does emphasize what he calls the reflective factor, that the entities we see, angels, demons, space people, they're often partially created by our own minds, our own belief structures.
The machine senses what you're programmed to believe, and it feeds you that exact hallucination.
So what you believe becomes more important than what you know. It dictates the form the phenomenon takes. And if that's true, the final question he leaves us with is a profound one.
Which is?
What knowledge could we gain if we learned to consciously tune in to the Akashic records, the cosmic tapes of all data that exist within this superspectrum? If we could bypass the programming and access the full history, could we begin to control our own destinies, rather than being endlessly controlled?
Think about that next time you feel a strong sense of divine purpose, or just see a strange light in the sky.